Hello, world. I am a human rights consultant and I am a situational awareness instructor. Now, let me tell you what those two things mean. Being a situational awareness instructor means that you want to be left of bang. That means, in the coin terms by Youssef Badu, is that you want to be on the left side of the situation of violence, not the right. The left side is before it happens, and the right side is after it happens. So if you want to do good, you always prevent situations from occurring. You see an attacker with a knife or a gun, take them out immediately, intercept them so that they can't harm and hurt other people. But when you're dealing with each other, you use manners that doesn't grow those kind of characteristics to begin with. And those are the things we can do to help ourselves. Why manners should be a scientific law in the universe. Because all the physics of all the chaos that has ever gone wrong and ever gone on happened because of disrespect and not using manners or respect towards the rest of the world. So the one thing I gotta say is, communication is the best thing we can do. So if we communicate about things, if we love one another to communicate well, if we can tell somebody when we're doing good or bad, or if we can tell somebody, we're struggling and be able to confide in them or learn that these things are trivial, that it's not the end of the world for us, all these different things. Sometimes we have life circumstances, but that does not mean it has to be the end of things for us. That means that it's trivial, it's bad that day, but the next day goes on and you have a better day. And those things are soon to come to pass. And what happens? God tends with mankind and he heals the brokenhearted. So he basically had Jesus stomp on Satan for us in order for us to gain the kingdom back like we deserve, instead of being robbed of it and living in sin and filth like Satan would have let us. So I have a few things for human rights, and I'm going to share them today because we went over some stuff. So these are my goals. So we have equality, right? So I'm made of dust. I'm made of stardust. I'm made of earth dust. So are you. We all have certain things that make us proud, but being proud is a stumbling block for all of us. So as if we have the correct view of ourselves and others. Because having something that's a stumbling block for us a lot of times causes pain and suffering. So say for a family, if it was molestation or incest or different things like that, you'd want to omit those things from a family so that the family has well-being and thrives in a Sigmund Freud's kind of well-being sort of way. And the same for groups that communicate in schools or active workshops, just anywhere. And when you talk to a doctor, if you can confide in that doctor and learn new things, that is a great way to improve yourself every day. So mental health awareness, and then actually having therapy available for those people who need to work through their circumstances, that is a definite plus. Thumbs up. So we're all born with certain inalienable rights, right? So being equal means we were born with the same rights and that one person is not better than the other. Having equal rights means that we are all represented by certain freedoms. Necessary means our rights that are a common necessity that should be met proportionately. And proportionate means that they are delivered based upon need and necessary portion. And we have 30 basic human rights. So we are free and equal, number 1. 2, no discrimination. 3, the right to life. 4, we cannot be enslaved. 5, we cannot be tortured. 6, your rights remain everywhere. 7, we're all equal before the law. 8, our human rights are protected by law. 9, we cannot be unfairly detained. 10, we have the right to fair trial. 11, we're innocent until proven guilty. 12, we have a right to privacy. 13, freedom of movement. 14, the right to seek a safe place to live. 15, the right to nationality. 16, everyone has the right to marriage and family. 17, the right to our own possessions. 18, the right to freedom of thought. 19, the right to express ourselves. 20, right to public assembly. 21, right to democracy. 22, the right to social security. 23, no discrimination. 24, the right to leisure and rest. 25, the rights to food and shelter. 26, the rights to education. 27, a right to copyrights of your own creation and artistic works. 28, we have the right to a fair and free world. 29, we are responsible for upholding and maintaining other people's rights and our own. 30, and our human rights cannot be taken away. All right, so that's what I got to say about that. So there's so much stuff we can learn. We can learn there's workplace hygiene. Another thing, for example, I learned this through the School of Bokai. Anyhow, there are certain process theories that takes people through motivational processes in obtaining a job. So we as people, when we search for a job, we want to look for a lot of things like benefits. Is it a good place to work? Is it happy? Am I going to have a bad atmosphere? Is it dirty, clean? And how many breaks do I get? And are they breaking the law? So all these things is called workplace hygiene. And we got process theory that gets us to the motivation of actually working at a company. So we have process theories that pretty much help us come to the motivation. And there's certain things that motivate us, like, good benefits like healthcare, paid time off, paid leave, family leave, just different, whatever it may be. There's some sort of benefit for us that's attainable, that we enjoy as people. And that's good for that company and finding employees that help fulfill their needs as being a successful stand on the foot business. So we have all these different things that are tools in our lives. And so with bioinformatics, genetics, genetics is the coolest thing that is the biggest evidence of God. That if we have a heart and mind that is connected, and we have no reason or no being of knowing how or why we can read each other thoughts and angels and why they're here and why we come to conclusions without anybody's help, that means we have the gifts. And those gifts are the gifts of life. And they're very important and integral to us. And another thing, integrity is something that we should always try to maintain and keep. So if you see an officer and he's not maintaining his integrity, report him. Because those are the kind of people that are going to bring chaos into the world. So we have to have a fair life for ourselves, right? That's only fair. The officers, they work a hard job. They deserve to have their rights too. But they shouldn't be using their power over somebody else to take advantage of them. And that's breaking their integrity, which means they're violating human rights. And that's unlawful. That's not being a law-abiding officer at all. So what else is there? So with genetics, we have a breath of life on the God sense, and it's physical, so it expires. But we have a light energy that goes back to the heavens, kind of like the energy cannot be created nor destroyed type of thing. And I think that's how God keeps our memory alive. And I think that light energy is processed and changed back into a new life form. And I think that there's so much truth and evidence in the world that it speaks of itself to tell us that we're a reflection of one another. That yes, we did evolve, but that God's the reason we did evolve. And that basically in the end, what we do matters down to the point of a ballpoint pen. And so we may want to ignore those things and think they don't matter. But in the end, if we're grieving the spirit of another person's or our own, then we need to really take it into consideration and think harder on it, So I've had some bad experiences a while back, but I have some goals for this year, and my goal is to overcome it. And I think that anybody that incessantly steals against somebody else or tries to harm them or hurt them, that they will not make it into the new kingdom of God. And that likely God will destroy them completely because they're wicked. And this is what happens to wicked people. People who are wicked are destroyed by themselves at the hand of the devil and other wicked people. So you have to have faith in God, because God is the one that salvates, He saves, and He's about your life and He's got your back, just like Jesus did. But Jesus is the one that marries Mount Zion like a bride. So is the repurchased people of the earth. And these people are the bride to Jesus and the new kingdom. And He rules as king for God. And so you got Mount Zion, all the holy mountain of all the repurchased people. And these are the people that God bought from the earth for all these beautiful things to happen. So don't give up. And, education is a right just as well as a lot of many other things, like the right to no unfair detainment or maltreatment or anything like that. So we all have certain rights that other people offend or infringe upon, and we shouldn't let them do that, because that's not right. That's not correct in God's eyes, and we shouldn't allow it, and it is illegal. So they can't go to jail for that. But the law was always there to protect us. Laws first occurred by God with Moses and the Israelites in the wilderness, and He gave them a tablet, and He had spiritual Israel follow that tablet. And for that time, that was where the Jews were held to a covenant. And so Moses led them, and they fed from the manna in the wilderness, which was like an ice-like food, and it filled their stomachs. And this is how they survived. But the thing is, they parted the Red Sea, they walked through it, right? If you meet God at the other end of the storm, if Jesus is there and you walk through, you certainly are attaining life, and nobody can take that away from you. So don't let them. People will try to rob you of life, but in the end, the biggest power we all have is standing together as one family and fighting and learning and loving as one family. So if you think of sin, turn away from it, because it's error. It'll cause suffering, It causes suffering for people to sin. And that's the law behind that the man who sins dies. And that's the thing. We don't want to die, so we got to turn away from those things. Like if it'd be like a bunch of domino effect murders because somebody murdered somebody else. Yeah, that's a real dangerous thing too, because you might start with 1 and end up with 7. So we have the most atrocious and yet beautiful world. If we see in the hearts and love and eyes and the potential of one another, if we're able to read each other's thoughts and communicate in a loving way, then we're given so much more of a gift than if we do otherwise. Because if we do otherwise, likely God will just take us and say, on Judgment Day, you didn't make it. I'm sorry, son. So, in the end, if we have everlasting life, we have hope. And that's why it's so important that today we live in faith and that we grow to love one another. And, the conviction comes from my heart that if somebody truly loves God, then they're a good associate. But for all of us, we should definitely turn away from fools.